My name is Sandra Leckey and I'm really passionate about reminiscing, and my friend Grace Davin has a wonderful garden and that's where I am today. And later my friend Jane McKibben is going to sing something that reminds me of this picture, and this is a picture on a jigsaw of an English country garden. So we're going to introduce you now to Jane, who will sing In an English Country Garden, even though we're in Northern Ireland. So talking about gorse and wind leads me to the wildflowers that we would naturally see when we're out walking, even going to school in the old days across meadows. And here we've got a lovely selection. So we have our whin, but we have cow parsley. Now don't bring this into the house, it looks fabulous here, but there's an awful smell when you bring it into the house. But cow parsley, it's a bit like gypsophilia in a way, beautiful. And then of course we have a camellia. And we have our lovely, look how beautiful these tulips are. Tulips from Amsterdam. Then we have wild garlic. You see lots of this in the moorns at the moment and in country lanes. Plethora of wild garlic. So if you're good with pesto and chopping and cooking, you can make lovely sauces. Now bluebells, what can I say? Look at the colour. If you're lucky enough to live near Hillsborough Forest, in the next week or so, we'll see lots of bluebells out. And also primroses, beautiful natural primroses. Sadly, we don't see as many as we'd like to. So years ago, there was a thing called the tussie mussy. And this little tiny nosegay reminds me in Victorian times where they would have gathered herbs and flowers and they would have smelt them to keep the bad smells away. And also there's a romantic link with the tussie mussy in that each flower would have a meaning. So if your boyfriend was courting you and sent you a small tussie mussy or nosegay, the language, for example, if there was a rose in it, that would meant that he was very affectionate and he loved you. So every flower had a meaning. And then we have the hawthorn, and the hawthorn comes out in flower before this is the blackthorn here, and then the hawthorn here. Beautiful, again a beautiful flower, lovely white colour. And last and not least
is the stitchwort and some pretty little clematis that have just started to bloom, little alpine clematis.
Isn't nature just wonderful? So much natural beauty and God's earth. So I'm standing beside a magnificent bush of gorse, or whin as I call it, and this always comes out towards, around Easter. And at the moment, some of the stories I'm hearing, because we've just finished Easter, is from elderly people who would have picked this. Now you really need gardening gloves on if you're going to attempt to pick whin, because it's very, very prickly. But what you do is you dye your eggs in it and then you roll them down the hill. So as you can see, we've got some lovely fresh eggs. Now the brown ones won't work, so don't even attempt to dye with brown, because I've actually tried it and it didn't work. But as you can see here in this lovely pot, one I prepared earlier, the egg is actually gone a lovely yellow colour, almost a golden colour. And you would just roll this down the hill on Easter Sunday. From opulent table decorations bursting with colour and scent to the simplest hanging bunches of dried flowers, you can see here how beautifully Grace has put this fabulous arrangement together, and all this comes from our gardens. And in here's a lovely terracotta pot with rope, might even be from the Belfast Rope Company, and fabulous dried roses. And also here we have lots of arrangements of various dried flowers. There's the dried sunflowers and seed heads and lavender. So basically we can use flowers from our garden all year round.
And we're just about to dry out some logs for the winter. We've a barrow full of logs here, and that'll keep us going for a couple of hours.
Now that you've finished with the logs, John, can you show me some of these old gardening implements?
Well, first of all, we have the shovel, and very useful for moving the soil, and have a rake
To rake up the grass
rake
after
up the
you
grass.
cut it.
This is a hoe to hoe out the weeds from the soil.
I'm talking about weeds, John. I brought this because my father had this. And so when I was a child, Daddy was always asking me to help him to weed. And so I would pull out the weed, but as you can see, there would be a fair bit of soil on it. And I was just putting these into the wheelbarrow. But Dad told me, no, put them on and shake it back again so the soil comes down back into the earth and you're not taking more soil than weeds, Sandra. And you have here now...
And here we have a rake. It's very useful sometimes for raking out the weeds.
Yes, and the brush, of course, which is very, particularly at the end of the day.
Well, yes, just to tidy up afterwards.
Uh-huh.
I have a brush or a broom.
Particularly if you've been potting and pruning.
And when the grass gets a bit long around the edge, or for pruning, we have these shears.
Excellent. So as you can see, we have lots of herbs here, and years ago herbs, and still are used for medicinal purposes. Now catmint would have been used for headaches, which is good for fevers as it induces perspiration. Chamomile was also used for headaches, kidney, liver and bladder problems, and also to aid digestion. Comfrey, the boiled root, would be used for wrapping around broken bones. And dandelions, I mean, don't think they're just weeds, because if they were growing wild, they were used for colds, for boils, for jaundice and for itching. Fennel was used for colds, heart ailments and to counteract body odour. So you don't need deodorant, you just need fennel, and aid your digestion. And horseradish, which we use on our roast beef, was used for worms in children, for sciatica and joint pains, and also as a diuretic. Lemon balm was used for melancholia. Lavender, and we have lavender here, and it was used for headaches and for personal scent. So gardens are also very practical places, and with this lovely sunshine, they're good for drying clothes. So years ago there would have been a lot of hand embroidery, and as you can see, we look close up, I've got the original old wooden pegs. These are dolly pegs, and they would have been used. I'm going to show you these because this isn't my generation, but you might remember the white starched collars. So I think these are for 17.5 collar, as it says here. And these would have been starched, and you would have just buttoned these onto the shirt. A lot of office workers would have worn these. So you can see just how crisp, and even the noise of them. Beautiful, beautiful white collars. So they're white collars and blue collars years ago, but these are the white collars. Years ago, sadly as a country, we imported tobacco and we imported sugar, and that's why there's a lot of obesity at the moment. But years ago, when rationing was on during the war, and rationing, remember, didn't finish until the 50s, soup and homegrown vegetables were very important. And if you didn't have a garden, you would have grown potatoes in pots, carrots in small wooden containers, and doctors would have put this up in their sermon or their surgery. So I make a good soup, says Potato Pete, and Dr. Carrot, the children's best friend. And so today we've made an amazing pot. Look how healthy this is. Look at the colours. And this is the best nutrition you can get. So you're getting your 5 or your 7 a day all in one pot. So John is now holding another poster up for me, and this one again would have been displayed in doctor's surgery and hospitals, again demonstrating and pushing the fact that good nutrition and healthy vegetables are good for us. And this says, turn over a new leaf, eat vegetables daily to enjoy good health. We have our peas, we have our Brussels sprouts, we have radishes, we have onions, we have carrots, we have turnips, and and leeks. So I'm sure you'll recognise lots of these, even the cauliflower. So this was a very good pictorial poster to tell us what was good for our health. The last poster John is holding up, I've got these from the museum to share with you today, is eat greens for health. So basically the more greens we eat, the better for us. And as you can see, it's green for go. So just look, you just visualise this fabulous canopy of cherry blossom. It is absolutely heavenly. And with the blue skies and this silhouetted against it, and we're standing in Sycamore Hill, and over on the horizon you can see the sycamore tree on Sycamore Hill. Just heavenly. Now I'm sure you can remember having picnics with your mum and dad. They probably put you in the car on a Sunday afternoon and you drove somewhere, and mum would have had the picnic hamper or a nice basket like this. And I was reading this interesting bit about the first ever sandwich. It was one day in 1760, John Montague, Earl of Sandwich, played cards for 24 hours non-stop, and then he asked for his meat to be put between two pieces of bread so they could eat and carry on playing, and that was the first sandwich. So here are my sandwiches, kindly made up, and years ago you'd have used greaseproof paper, brown paper. This would have been called your piece, and you would have taken your piece to work. And so we have some lovely sandwiches. This is fairly old sandwich plate here. And we just, sometimes you would have cut them in triangles if you were posh, or otherwise just in half. And we would have had sandwiches made of spam or corned beef. You remember spam? One lady this morning on Radio 4 was saying that she had cheese and jam. And other people would have had just sugar, believe it or not, just sugar in sandwiches, and that's maybe all, or jam sandwiches. So spam, people who got spam sandwiches were quite lucky. But if you had a lovely garden where you were growing lettuce and tomatoes, that would really be a lovely accompaniment to a sandwich, a nice salad sandwich. After your sandwich, you would have had a piece of fruit like an apple or an orange. Remember, this is what you used to get in your Christmas stocking. And maybe some potato crisps. In the old days they had a little bag of salt in them, and you shook the salt into the crisps. And maybe if you were very good, a bourbon biscuit or a fig roll, or a flake meal biscuit, or even some homemade shortbread. And then of course mother and father would have relaxed, maybe read the paper while the children would have played, and if they had a skipping rope with them, like this was made years ago. You didn't need a lot to make it. These are two bobbin holders, and as you see, the Belfast rope has just gone through them. And my friend Jane is going to sing a song in and out of the dusty bluebells, and these bluebells are here to remind us of some of the songs that we would have sung, skipping rhymes, and again referring back to nature. Also Oranges and Lemons sang the bells of St Clements, again referring back to nature and the lovely things that our garden grows. This poem is entitled The Dog. When God had made the earth and sky, the flowers and the trees, he then made all the animals and all the birds and bees. And when his work was finished, not one was quite the same. He said, I'll walk this earth of mine and give each one a name. And so he travelled land and sea, and everywhere he went, a little creature followed him until its strength was spent. When all were named upon the earth and in the sky and sea, the little creature said, Dear Lord, there's not one left for me. The Father smiled and softly said, I've left you to the end. I've turned my own name back to front and called you Dog, my friend. So this is a lovely poster I found, and it says, I live with dementia, but I still love nature. My dog, my grandchildren, my music, my life. And this is this garden's full of forget-me-nots, and that's why we've placed it here. So you see, I'm still me, and though I may forget, I hope you won't. Folks, as we come into May, I have a blessing for May, and I would like to share it with you. May your health improve, May your friends be blessed. May your family be loved. And may your finances multiply. May your pains be less. May your worries disappear. And may you be blessed. And finally, from Grace's beautiful garden on Sycamore Hill, the kiss of the sun today for pardon, the song of the birds for mirth. You're closer to God's heart in a garden than any place on earth. And that was written by Dorothy Frances Gurney.